Welcome to Japan Deep Dive Report. Okay, I want you to picture something. An iron nail, forged over 1,300 years ago. Now imagine pulling that same nail out of an ancient wooden temple beam today and finding its core is still shiny, still pristine, like the day it was made. How in the world is that possible? Well, that's the incredible mystery we're diving into today. We are talking about the actual nails used in Japan's Horyuji Temple, which is one of the oldest wooden buildings on the entire planet. For 13 centuries, these simple nails have held the temple together. And yet, when you look inside them, there's almost no rust. It's a kind of preservation that just seems to defy everything we know about iron. So that's the big question, isn't it? How did ancient Japanese craftsmen create a metal so pure, so resilient, that it could just shrug off the passage of time for over 1,000 years? The answer isn't magic. It's a masterful and nearly forgotten art of fire, sand, and incredible patience. Right, so the secret behind these almost immortal nails is a really unique and unbelievably demanding way of making steel. It's a technique that grew out of Japan's own unique natural resources and was perfected over hundreds of years. It's called Tatara. Now, that word refers to a special kind of clay furnace, but honestly, it stands for an entire philosophy of working with metal, one that put purity above absolutely everything else. So what exactly is Tatara? Well, it's a traditional way of smelting. But here's the crucial part that sets it apart from almost every other method in the world. It doesn't use iron ore that you dig out of a mine. Nope, it uses a very special kind of iron sand. And that one choice of material, it changes everything. And as you can probably guess, the steel that comes out of this incredible process is just as special. It's known as tamahagane, and even its name gives you a clue as to just how precious this stuff is. Tamahagane literally translates to jewel steel. Think about that. Jewel steel. It's an exceptionally pure kind of steel, and it's the only material that can be used to forge the highest quality traditional Japanese swords, what are known as nihonto. This isn't just metal, It's considered the very soul of the samurai sword. So, how in the world do you make this jewel steel? Well, the whole process pretty much goes against everything we do in modern mass production steelmaking. It's all about patience, an obsession with purity, and maybe most surprising of all, using lower heat. Let's just compare them for a second. A modern furnace takes iron ore and just blasts it with crazy high heat. We're talking over 1,500 degrees Celsius to melt it down fast. Tatara, though, uses this high-quality iron sand called satitsu and charcoal, and it runs at a much, much lower temperature. And that lower temperature, that is the entire secret to its success. Now, the process itself is a true marathon of endurance. For 3 days and 3 nights, nonstop, the forge masters, they're called the mirage, they carefully feed this clay furnace with layer after layer of iron sand and charcoal. All the while, air is being pumped in with these huge bellows called fuigo to keep that temperature perfectly in the low zone. And then at the end, they actually break the furnace itself open to harvest that precious bloom of steel inside. So why the low heat? It seems totally counterintuitive, right? But it is absolute genius. See, at these lower temperatures, you separate the iron from the sand. But a lot of the impurities, things like phosphorus and sulfur that make steel brittle and really prone to rust, they never actually get hot enough to melt. They just stay separate and can be removed, leaving behind an incredibly pure steel. And that purity is why it resists rust so well. That's the answer to our 1,300-year-old nail. Of course, a technology this sophisticated didn't just appear out of thin air. It has a really long and fascinating history in Japan, evolving from very ancient techniques to become the absolute backbone of the nation's industry for centuries. The earliest signs of iron smelting in Japan go all the way back to the 3rd century. But the Tatara process we're talking about really took shape over a long time. It gets its first shout-out in writing in the 8th century, was perfected during the Edo period, where it supplied pretty much all of Japan's iron, and then it almost went extinct when Western technology arrived in the Meiji period. And here is that first written record. It's from the Nihon Shoki, which is one of Japan's oldest history books. It mentions using a water wheel, or mizuwasu, to power the bellows. This is so cool because it shows that even back in the 8th century, they were already figuring out ways to innovate and scale up this vital technology. Okay, but here's a little twist in the story. While the technology itself is uniquely Japanese, the name itself might not be. Its origins are actually kind of a mystery. There are two main theories here. One suggests the word comes from the ancient Sanskrit word Tatara, which just means heat. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? But another theory connects it to the Tatars, a nomadic people from North Asia, which hints that maybe the basic idea traveled along ancient trade routes before being perfected in Japan. Pretty interesting stuff. So, the arrival of modern industry almost spelled the end for this ancient art. But the story doesn't end there. It has a modern chapter, a story of near extinction and a very specific and very sharp revival. So, when Japan opened up to the West in the late 1800s, modern blast furnaces showed up. And they were faster, they were more efficient, and they could churn out steel on a massive industrial scale. The slow, painstaking, labor-intensive Tatara process, well, it just couldn't compete. For a while there, it really looked like it was going to be nothing more than a footnote in history. But then, they made a critical discovery. Swordsmiths found that the steel from these new modern furnaces, even though it was strong, it just didn't have the right stuff to create a true masterpiece Nihonto. That unique blend of hardness and flexibility, the ability to hold that legendary edge, the beautiful patterns in the blade, all of it could only come from pure, traditionally made tamahagin. And so, in a way, the sword saved the steel. Today, this ancient tradition is kept alive by the Society for the Preservation of Japanese Art Swords. And get this, they operate the one and only remaining Tatara in all of Japan, the Nitoho Katara, just to make sure that this jewel steel is still available for the country's greatest swordsmiths. So from an ancient nail that refuses to rust all the way to the legendary blade of a samurai sword, the story of Tatara is really a story about purity. It's a testament to a mindset where the quality of what you create is worth any amount of time and any amount of effort. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. In our modern world of instant gratification and mass production, what's the value of a process that takes 3 sleepless nights and ends with the furnace literally being destroyed, all for a single perfect piece of steel? It really makes you wonder what's truly worth the effort, doesn't it?